This is the tale of two, of the BBC Two identification logo. It's not so long ago that BBC Two was presented like this. Or this. Or until 1991, like this. So how was TWO elbowed aside by the wonderful Two?
I realised there was a problem almost as soon as I took over the channel. It was obvious that the logo made absolutely no impact. In fact, it was something anyone could have told you. It was singularly unmemorable, and it told you nothing about the personality of the channel. So we decided to commission a corporate design company to do some research.
When the research came back, we were really surprised, because what it told us was that the audience thought BBC Two was dull and worthy, which is a bit of a shock to everybody involved.
So how did they set about changing people's perceptions? They invented an entirely new Two, more in step with the programmes themselves and with a personality all its own. Hopefully witty, decidedly unusual.
We took this Two, actually, and then you think to yourself, well, there's nothing special about this. Well, there is something special about this, actually. It's a very distinctive Two. It has very sharp bits on it, and it's rather nice and fat. The reason we wanted that particular Two is because we wanted to do things with it. And so you need lots of Two, lots of body on the Two, in order to achieve that.
The familiar greeny-blue colour was featured in the very first batch of Twos and became a standard component in subsequent designs to aid identification. But never mind the colour, how did they do this? Well, they turned the camera and the Model 2 on their sides and then filmed paint dropping from a height, so that when the film was played the right way up, it appeared to hurtle in from the side. Simple when you know how, but the latest episode in the Tale of Two needed a more complicated setup to produce a steaming Two.
As well as the idea of the surprise of the water turning into steam on an object which didn't look hot, we also wanted to actually have the water coming from every angle.
And that was the main problem, really, getting some kind of a rig which allowed us to release water on cue. And we've come up with quite an amazing Heath Robinson device, I think.
The drops of water are controlled by opening and closing a system of valves so that they splash down on cue. The camera lens is in the centre of the action, but it's shielded from the water, and this is what it sees. Another new ident hot off the press is called Diary. The final piece may be on screen for only a few seconds, but it took days to produce.
Basically, we have a piece of fish wire which is attached to the Two with an undercurrent of air, so when we pull it, the actual Two will come forward on a jet of air.
The original aim was to pull 10 Twos off in rapid succession, but things got in a bit of a tangle.
And we ended up with a lot of cross wires even doing it on this way, but with 10 of them, it was just like a sort of down at the lake on Sunday with everyone's rods going in. It was impossible to coordinate.
So they cheated. They repeated the original shot over and over again.
But how the Twos were filmed is not the whole story. Every Two has sound effects or specially composed music behind it. How are these created? Perhaps not exactly how you'd expect. The music for each Two was inspired by a particular theme.
We came up with a fantasy for Silk, which was a seascape. And the Silk became billowing waves, and the Two became a sunken ship, complete with piping aboard.
And a ship's bell way underneath the ocean.
And ghostly feelings like whales in the water.
So how successful has the new look been? 6 months after the first research, they tested the audience reaction.
The results were absolutely phenomenal, because all the negatives that came out in the first lot of research, about dull and worthy, had disappeared entirely. And it was all, sophisticated and witty and amusing, and all these kind of words started coming out.
And back at the Beeb, how do they feel about the Two they've unleashed?
We feel it's taken on quite a character of its own. It's sort of started to come alive. We see it as the hero of the piece. And it's definitely got its own little character.